Hey, I think the live stream is working. Alrighty. Oh, hey, Nichols. Uh, you liked the book recommendation. I'm glad to hear that. I was not sure if you're going to like it after your comments, but I don't know if you mind me saying, but the book was Moneyball. I just finished it too, and that was really good. I should have read it 20 years ago. Um, let's see. Trying to keep my stuff organized here. Is the video working in the general chat? And if you guys have any um, questions, then fire them at me. Right now, we don't have questions open on the YouTube live stream, just the within the BJA member chat area in the general chat, because we're going to prioritize our members and their questions, and because this is our first time doing a live stream, but it's been a while, and I don't want to moderate too many things at once. So it looks like video's working. We got some time. Yeah, fire any questions. Otherwise, I'm just going to chill, and we'll get started in just a little bit. Any of you guys read Moneyball? I feel like in another life, I could have been, uh, someone that works in a sports, statistics department. But then I would have been frustrated because they wouldn't have listened. They would have followed their gut, and I would have quit. No questions. Just wanting to say hi. Cool. Hey, CJ24. Got three people typing at me, but just waiting for responses. Hey, Joe Miner. Looking very European tonight. Thank you. So, kind of a funny story. In all my years of doing this, I've never had someone not in a casino recognize me, but I had two people in the last week say, "Hey, are you the Blackjack guy?" So apparently, I need to work on my disguise. At least when I'm in casinos, I need to look less like me. Um, oh, Nichols talking about FIP and ERA. Yeah, dude, that whole book was good. It was surprising in the movie Moneyball. Um, Billy Bean is a bit more calculated and a little bit less emotional, but in the book, man, he's like kind of his emo he makes his business decisions when he's thinking non-emotionally. He makes really great ones, but then he gets all emotional and wants to start trading players and uh, breaking things. Any blackjack questions before I bring Captain Jack on. For those talking about card counting being dead, I found one of the best blackjack games I've found in a while recently. Um, it was kind of a fun, surprising find, and then I've been hearing some good stories from people. Oh, you know what I want to tell you guys is we just did a boot camp a week ago, and it went really well. But we've got another one coming up at the end of October. Um, and the last I checked, there were 2 spots left for it. So if you are wanting to join a boot camp, don't wait too long. If you want to do one this year, because I'll be the last one of the year. And like I said, I think there's 2 spots available. Um, ooh, Penetrator asks, would I leave if the pit boss starts dealing to me? No, no. There are casinos where the pit will, sub in. If you think that they're doing it because they're onto you, you don't have to change your bets while they're dealing to you during that shoe or those 2 or 3 shoes. You know, you could just bet the minimums or change your bets a tiny bit. But you know, we had our guest speaker at the last boot camp was Andy Ewell. He wrote the Blackjack Insiders, and he has been a card counter, but he also has worked pit boss all the way up to floor supervisor. And he was saying most card counters are vastly overestimating the knowledge of pit and dealers. That most pit bosses don't know how to identify a card counter. Most dealers don't. So you don't want to give them too much credit. But if you are concerned, use a smaller spread for a little bit. And just keep track of it in your results. Say like, oh yeah, for an hour I used you know a 1-6 spread instead of a 1-20 spread or whatever. That's what I would do. Or well, if I did anything differently, that's what I would do. Um, CJ4, about 150 hours in of training. I'm a perfectionist. Don't want to hit the casinos till I'm tested out. Not sure if I can make October. Definitely make the next one. Yeah, sounds good. What happened to the beard, Mr. Let's Go Brandon? What happened to the beard? I don't know. I just shaved a couple days ago. I'd been hiking and I was hot. I was hiking somewhere with my brother that was 100 degrees, so that was hot. Um, Sadly, won't be able to make it to October boot camp. Yeah, just letting you guys know. Don't want to wait too long if you're thinking about it. Um, Canyon Elementary, hey, how's it going, man? It's been a while. Do you ever worry about spreading ourselves too thin with blackjack and sports betting? I want to be really good at both. Well, yeah, you got to be a professional at anything you do if you want to make money at it. There's like little side hacks, and there are things you can do with sports betting that are like kind of one-off ways to generate a little bit of EV. But if you want to do it sustainably, you want to treat it like a profession. So I would say the same for any form of advantage play. The people that have success at it are the people that take it seriously. So if you're you know, wanting to have success at it, take it seriously. And, you know, it, if you get card counting to that level where it's professional, you can run through the training suite, the test out every week and keep your skills sharp. But that's taking you 30 minutes a week to keep your skills sharp. But I wouldn't play around, just like I tell people, don't play around with card counting. You wouldn't want to play around with sports betting or else you're going to lose money at it. Joe Miner, I had a dealer who knew and he cut the double deck shoe at point 0.3. Yes, I've had that as well. Um, Very nice when a dealer is working with you. And, we always talk at boot camps about you've gotta like run the numbers and make a good business decision with tipping. But if there's ever a time to tip, it's a dealer that is benefiting me, and I'm going to tip a percentage of the value that he's adding. So if he's adding $50 an hour, yeah, I'll tip him $5 or $10 an hour for that. Let's Go Brandon says, I trade options and count cards, very doable. Yeah, one of my original teammates was a day trader and a card counter, and he would take breaks from one or the other when he was getting burned out on it. When it was tough for him to be up at 6 a.m. when the markets opened here on the West Coast, he would take a break from card counting for a bit, or when he was feeling like card counting is a better use of his time, he would take a break from trading. Um, yeah, any other questions, comments? I'll get Captain Jack on here in a couple more minutes. Oh, Captain Jack is ready. Okay, let's just bring him on. All right, let's see.
Hey, can you see me?
Hey, yeah, hold on. I think I gotta get my AirPods so it's not coming out of the speakers. Speakers, AirPods, microphone. Cool. You there? All right. Yeah, okay, let's see if I can switch this thing. All right, I gotta get this split screen thing working. Let's see here. Skype, yeah, Skype's old school, but it works. Let's see here. Video capture, window capture, turn that off. And oh, I know. I gotta make myself, let's see, where's Skype? Oh yeah, I'm in the little corner. So to no, not together mode. Have you done together mode? Oh, there we go. Is that better? Cool. Yeah, we were thinking Zoom, but then Zoom, it's like 30-minute limits unless you're gonna pay. And I was like, oh, I've got Skype. We'll just do that. All right. Is this working? I need someone to tell me that this is working. I think it is. Oh, they say we can't hear Captain Jack on the split. Uh-oh, that's a problem. Let's see. Let's see here. Oh, let's see. OBS. Audio. Desktop. Hmm. Jonathan, if you have any way for me to get the audio working, let me know. Outputs. Yeah. Okay. This OBS has the world's most complicated. Oh, here we go. Oh, audio. Closed caption it. Let's see. Is it? It's got to be an OBS thing. Global. Default. Seems like it should be default, but I don't know. Advanced. Sorry, guys. I thought we'd tested it yesterday, but I can. Uh, it has to be the audio source in OBS. Has to be. Let me look at this for one more minute, and then yeah, we can try it again. Output, stream, output, audio, multi-output. Try talking now and see if that. Oh, OBS sources, click the plus. Ooh, someone's helping us out. OBS, hold on. Click the plus. Yeah, sources, click the plus. Audio output capture. But we don't want just audio, but maybe that'll still work. Click audio input capture. Oh, audio input capture. There we go. Okay. Default. Okay. They're all like, this is awesome. They're in there Google searching how to fix it. Is it working now? Uh, uh, oh, sorry, your output capture. Okay. Now they're saying output capture. All right, let's try that. Device. Nope, there's nothing. Defaults. Anyone check the YouTube stream? No, I didn't think to check the YouTube stream. Let me check that. We got over 100 people waiting for me to figure out the audio. Let me see if I can. It's not going on YouTube. Stream settings. Yeah. Oh, you know what? You know what? What if I? No, I already did that. Window capture. Hmm. Well, maybe I will stop streaming and we'll start it again. Uh, sure. Oh, yeah. Do you have audio output capture in the window? I do have audio output capture in the window, but there's no device to click on. So whoever's saying that, Hammer Syndicate. All right. Well, let me stop streaming and try starting it again. Oh, I don't want to do that. Okay. Oh, here we go. Enable. No, no, no. Audio. Nope. Dang. Desktop audio. Output. People are sending me all sorts of things, but it's monitoring device, multi-output device, default. Try it now, see if that did anything. Um, um, yes, I hear you in my AirPods. That's from Skype. Yeah, we could try that. Sure. Speaker default device. You there?
Here, yeah.
Okay. Now people are blaming Apple. Okay.
But can they hear me?
I don't know. Can you guys hear Captain Jack? I think they can hear you now. Maybe it's through my mic, but people are saying
okay.
yes, they can hear you.
Okay. And the audio is a good level? I hope so. Better than nothing, right?
Yeah. How's it sound, guys? All right, everybody's saying that's better. Okay, sorry, Captain Jack.
It's live internet.
Yeah.
Anything can happen.
Well, and this is why I didn't open it up to our 320,000 YouTube subscribers, because I definitely don't know what I'm doing. Awesome. Well, here we go. Everybody can see you. Everyone can hear you. Let's get started with your backstory.
Yeah, sure. So, and that's one of the reasons that I think this is so informational to your listeners is because my backstory is probably a lot like their backstory. I started out as a card counter a long time ago. 1999 was the first time I counted cards. And I started out, and if you wanted to find information about card counting, you had to go to a bookstore because that's what there was. We had internet sites, but really it was just one or two. BJ21, Stanford Wong's old site, was sort of like the go-to where you went to find information about card counting. That's where I wound up. And when I signed up for an account, it said I had to use an alias. And I was like, alias? Well, why? Because I was just so green. I didn't even know you don't use your real name. Yeah. So on the spot, I chose Captain Jack. I was a Billy Joel fan, and Blackjack, and Captain Jack. It just kind of fit. It's stuck ever since. And I was a card counter, and I wasn't a great card counter. I would say I was a mediocre card counter. Here's what I did wrong. I lived in New Jersey, and so I said, I'll just go to Atlantic City. And, your audience, they don't need me to tell them Atlantic City is lousy for blackjack. And so I was playing 8-deck games, and I was under bankrolled for 6-deck games where they had them. And I was just too lazy to put the time in to go around the country and find all the good games, like I'm sure a lot of you guys are doing now. And but one thing that being a card counter did was it allowed me to kind of network with some other card counters. And I found some guys that were sort of in my general area of the Pennsylvania, New Jersey, Maryland, New York area. And we formed like a little bit of like a sub forum. Like Stanford Wong used to allow you to pay to have your own little private sub forums. Nice. And so we had one. And one of the guys that was on there wrote a book about, it was called beatwebcasinos.com was the name of the book. It was Bill Haywood. And so he sent a copy to this book to all 5 of us that were on his little group there. And I was like, oh, wow, this sounds really cool. Like there's internet casinos and you can hustle the bonuses on them. And so I started doing that. And Colin, I built up a bankroll that way. I built up probably a far too big of a bankroll for my age at the time. But that propelled me into, well, what else is there? Like I didn't know internet casinos exist. I find this and I'm going to start leveraging this. What else is there? And there were online sports books and they had bonuses and I was taking advantage of them. And I was still involved in casino play and I was moving up to like more advanced things, other types of games, other types of ways to attack blackjack. And that sort of got me going on. I always wanted to figure out what else is there? What's next? What could I be doing that nobody else is trying to do yet? And so fast forward to around 2011 and my state, New Jersey, passed a bill to legalize sports betting. It got caught up in the court system for about 7 years, but finally in 2018, they overturned the PASPA, which was a congressional rule about sports betting. And so that was overturned and states were free to regulate sports betting. So New Jersey legalized. I had been a sports bettor full time as probably my primary source of advantage play income for about 3 or 4 years before that. And then in the 4 or 5 years since then, I've definitely kind of kept ramping it up. And so yeah, that's how I got to where I am today. And sports betting has slowly become more and more of my advantage play income because the ceiling is much higher. In other words, like with card counting, it's much tougher because you have, as you guys probably know, you have definitely limits of what you can make over the course of a year or a career as a card counter. And those limits keep getting higher, but the limits at sports betting are like a magnitude higher. I know plenty of 6 and 7 figure advantage players from casino play, blackjack, and other games. But I know some 7, 8, 9 figure sports bettors that have done it through sports betting. Colin, you know some of them because they come to the Blackjack Ball, which is where I first got in contact with you. And some of these guys are just absolutely crushing it by scaling upwards.
So a couple of questions. So it was card counting, and then that led into beating the online casino bonuses, and that led to sports?
So the online casinos also had online sports books back then, and they also had some juicy bonuses. And when I got involved in that, I had always been a sports fan, but I hadn't really been like into the quantitative nature of sports betting or anything like that. But I remember one of the first sports books I went to had a prop bet, which is you're betting on some kind of event to happen in a game, and they call that a prop bet. And it was over under on the number of home runs that would be hit. And, you just have to be a casual fan of baseball to know that, like, when the wind's blowing out, there's more home runs. Yeah. And if the wind's blowing out at Wrigley Field, there's a lot of home runs. Yeah. Or there's a lot of home runs at Coors Field in Denver because of the altitude. And there's not a lot of home runs in, like, San Francisco or San Diego, where they're closer to the coast and the temperatures are lower. And you kind of just think these things through in your head. But the sports book had everything lined at 2. So over under 2 home runs in a game, every game on the board. Wow. And sometimes they'd move the price up and down, the VIG. So it'd be like minus 120 on one game, minus 140 on another game. And I just went there and used common sense of saying, it's Wrigley Field. I checked the weather forecast. Oh, the wind's blowing out. I'll bet the over. And the over would hit. And I did very well with that. And that was kind of the early days of sports betting, back when it was like shooting fish in a barrel. Yeah. But I did very well with that and sort of, again, kind of built that bankroll just by picking off these $200 and $300 prop bets.
And did you burn your accounts just doing the bonuses?
So yes, of course. And back in those days, like, the offshores were really starting to get wise to bonus hunters, which is what I was. Yeah. And so when I first started, it was like you had to play through a bonus 2 or 3 times to cash it out. And then it became 15, 20 times. But you had some APs that, I don't know if you were one of them, Colin, or not, but these guys were taking it to a whole other level. Like, they had just rooms of like 20 computers that they were playing on all these different sites at the same time, just going through the bonuses. And they'd hire people to just come in and play through names. Because the identification that the sports books as well as the online casinos were using back then, they were all offshore. It was kind of loosey-goosey. You could have your buddy Photoshop a license for you, and suddenly you have a person's name that they're going to send money to. So it was the Wild West. There's a lot of stories from that.
Yeah, I think Richard Munchkin says that was like the most money they ever made was crushing online casino bonuses. I was in Washington State. It was like not worth the risk. I was making good money, playing blackjack and running teams that didn't get into it, but it's part of me that wishes a big part of me wishes I could have been in on that. But how'd you get involved with the blackjack ball? These are like personal. I'm just curious, and then we can get into the real stuff.
Yeah, let's see. I was lucky enough to get my first invite to the ball as a +1 with a guy I'm sure you know. I'm not sure what name I should call him at, but he's a British gentleman that travels the world, and I know who it is, and he invited me along as his +1, and I had always heard about the ball. It was a thrill to go. It was a thrill to see everyone that was there, to meet Ed Thorpe. I mean, come on, that's still a thrill. Every time I see him, it's still a thrill to be in the same room with him. And it was, it's kind of a big event every year. Like, I look forward to it, genuinely look forward to it every year. And it'll be coming up sometime in the future here, and I'm looking forward to it again.
Yeah, me too. That's where we met. That's where I've met a lot of people. That's where I met Tommy Hyland for the first time and whatnot. So that's our background for people wondering. So talk about, you got into sports betting kind of early days, but where is it at now since then, and where do you see it going? Because, I'll just let you answer.
Look, sports betting's hot right now. Anyone who's watching this live stream probably has seen commercials for DraftKings and FanDuel and BetMGM, and they're hiring big names to pitch these sports books. Look, sports betting is what a lot of people are thinking is the next big thing. And we are 4 years into legalization in the U.S. And I think we're up to 35 states now that have legalized it in some manner. Some states are really great for it. I happen to be in one, but like Colorado is really great for it. Tennessee is, oddly enough, a good state for it. Some states are not so much. You have states where they may have decided we just want one single operator for the entire state, like Oregon or New Hampshire. And some states just have a limited number of sports books available, maybe 2 or 3. But for states, if you're in a state where they have at least 10 different sports betting options for you, there's some serious money to be made, just because competition breeds innovation in a capitalistic market. And sports betting is absolutely a capitalistic market in those states. And there's been a lot of innovation. There's a lot of new things. I mentioned that I'm always looking for the next thing to come along. And sports betting has absolutely been the next big thing to come along for me, because it just keeps evolving. It keeps getting better. Look, your audience is very savvy, so they probably have already heard that of all these sign-up deals. Whenever I've been on Gambling with an Edge, I've talked about them. I was on Gambling with an Edge a week ago, and I had to break it to Bob and Richard that the sign-up deals are going away, because like that was too good to be true for a while, and now they're starting to, taper off. So if you're in a nearby state that has sports betting, that still has some sign-up deals, take advantage of them now. It's free money, and do those deals, and they won't be along much longer. But that also means like the next thing of sports betting would be coming along, and you got to be ready to take advantage of that.
Is that going to burn your account, doing those sign-up bonuses?
No, because they want these people to be in their sports book. So a lot of these sports books are publicly held companies that are reporting to shareholders, look, we have this amount of market share and we need to get here, and our cost of acquisition per customer is this. So it was pretty obvious right away that some of these bigger names, like the DraftKings, FanDuel's, BetMGM, they were willing to spend $300 to $500 to acquire a single customer, because they felt the long-term value of a customer exceeded that. So you knew right from the start that like these too good to be true offers were good, they were true. Yeah. And they were going to last. And then when you started to hear these companies report to their shareholders, well, we've found a way to take it down to $100 to $200 cost of acquisition per customer. Well, that's coming out of your pocket, because they're no longer paying to acquire you. Yep. So we're kind of reaching that point now. But to your question, no, they don't limit for acquiring a customer. They want all the customers they can get. And so that's why those sign-up deals were so good. Now, if you were to just pick off bonuses and promotions at the sportsbook, like ongoing promotions, yes, they do get tired of you. But it's still viable if you're a small-time bettor. That's still a viable way to grow a bankroll, $50, $100 at a time, over and over again. You just kind of keep on growing up higher. I know a guy that started out with absolutely no bankroll. Mm-hmm. He started out with like a free $100 at DraftKings back in 2019. And he's grown it up to be, I'd say his bankroll's in the $30,000 to $40,000 range from nothing. Wow. Just growing it up through promotions and grinding it out, and basically all risk-free. He's not like he's putting it all on this team to win. He's just going around to the promotions and bonuses where we can find him and just pack it onto his bankroll for the next thing. So
it's like the online casino version of match play runs, and exactly built their bankroll just grinding, doing the match plays. Someone on the forum had a good question. Simple Jack is reminding me. Do you know what states allow multiple sign-up bonuses in different states?
Yeah, we're down to just 2. Bet Rivers, they have a $250 sign-up bonus in every state that they operate in, and you can do that individually in every state. And BetMGM. And the reason that you don't see more of those is because now they all use a shared wallet. So you log into your FanDuel account in Virginia and you log into your FanDuel account in Arizona, and it knows it's you. So it's not going to allow you to kind of have a new account there in Arizona or Virginia. But so far, for whatever reason, BetMGM hasn't been able to link them all together, and neither has Bet Rivers. But they're the only 2 that are left. Quick story. So last summer, Caesars had a fantastic offer, $5,000 free bet. Mm-hmm. And there were guys, and you probably know some of these guys, who basically just went on a road trip, and they hit 11 different Caesars states across the map, zigzagging from, Mississippi to Iowa to anyway, and hammered it as quick as they could, because they knew like Caesars is going to smarten up here. Yeah. And within a month and a half, Caesars was like, okay, you can no longer do this in multiple states, but they got it under the wire and they made a ton of money.
That's all, that's all advantage play. You find the edge and you hit it while you can. It's not going to last for long. So just in case there's anybody watching that's like, what are you talking about? Bonuses. Can you just give like the elevator explanation of these bonuses?
Sure. So sports books want to acquire their customers, and they want to get them in the door by giving them these what they call a risk-free bet. And how it normally works is you deposit how much money you want in a sports book, and your first bet is risk-free. In other words, if it loses, you get the money back. Now, you may get the money back in the form of another free bet that you can use, and you have to use it all in one chunk. You may get it back in the form of free play that you can kind of grab into. And there's different optimal ways to play each one of them. But really, it comes down to, if you get a risk-free bet, you want to put it on as big a long shot as you can stomach. It's sort of like if I were to give you a free $5 chip in the casino, Colin, would you go play that on Blackjack, where you're going to get paid 1-to-1, maybe 1.5-to-1? Or would you go play it on roulette and bet a single number on roulette? Your variance is much higher, but it's actually, even though the roulette EV is much worse, it's actually a better play. Grosjean wrote about this.
Beyond coupons.
So the same thing applies to sports betting. You want to play it on a longer shot. Now, there is a way you can kind of hedge your bet, and you can find the opposite side of the game. And so you can bet the long shot on one side, and you can bet the heavy favorite with your own money elsewhere. And then you're just basically getting the EV of the bet, which might work out to be exactly half of what the free bet amount is. So if it's a 5, and you were to bet one here and one here, your guaranteed win is like 250. That's a way that a lot of players like to play it, just to guarantee their income, their bankroll build. But
that's a lot
playing it on a
lower
long
EV,
shot is
right?
the optimal way.
Yeah. Grosjean talks about that, and also they talked about that. Munchkin and Daryl Purpose. It was Risk of Ruin podcast, I think, that told this part of their story, and was talking about, like, why would we hedge our bets? We're going after the EV, and just assume you're going to get enough bets in. Why would you shortchange yourself? Okay, well, let's move on. So explain, our members are card counters. What should they be thinking about, or what would be the hurdles, or the transition, or how could they decide if this is something that is worth pursuing? Because honestly, I actually got an email today from someone that said, "Hey, Colin, thanks for talking me out of card counting. That was really helpful. And I just wanted to contact you. I want people to know, like, I'm not trying to talk people into doing something they shouldn't do. But for card counters, how can they decide if this is something worth pursuing or not?"
Yeah, Colin, that's a great point. Like, let's talk about the reasons why you shouldn't pursue sports betting. Yeah, okay? Sure. Not for everyone. It is a grind. Richard Munchkin, one time I was talking to him, and he said, "How many hours a day do you put into sports betting?" And I paused and I said, "Richard, a lot. I think sports betting will take as many hours as I want to put into it. It's not like, you were talking in your pre-show here about card counting. You kind of got to keep yourself up to speed, but that only takes maybe 30 minutes every week or so. Sports betting is sort of like something you're going to be doing like almost all the time. Now, it doesn't mean you have to devote all of your time to it. It's just that it's the sort of thing where it can become a definite grind. It's a very profitable grind if you want to try to do it. It's also, it can be time intensive. So if you're the kind of person that just doesn't have a lot of time, I wouldn't get into sports betting. There are things you can do to kind of fit sports betting into the time slot you have, and we'll talk more about that, I think. But for the most part, like if you're the kind of person that doesn't enjoy betting and you don't really want to think quantitatively, in other words, numbers based on a lot of things, sports betting might not be for you. And then we can talk about like what sports betting isn't. So sports betting isn't picking winners. Like, that's the biggest misnomer there is out there, is that to be a successful sports bettor, you have to pick winners. False. Sports betting, and you just have to spot inefficiencies in the market and then take advantage of that and profit in the long run. You're building up EV. Your actual value is going to converge with your expected value over time. Yeah. These are all things that I'm sure Colin has preached about in the past. And that's the same to be true in sports betting. you are finding inefficiencies in a market and taking advantage of those. And I'd say one of the biggest hurdles I've heard from other blackjack card counters that have then tried to go into sports betting, as well as tried to go into poker. It's the same complaint on both. I can't quantify my edge.
Yeah.
You know, I play blackjack and I have a finite deck, and I know exactly when the count is +1, this is my edge, this is my bet. When the count is +3 and there's the side count of aces, this is my edge, this is my bet. And in sports betting, it's not as clear cut, because yes, you can somewhat quantify your edge, but you also have to understand that there are intangibles out there that factor into everything that you might not have be taken into account. But the thing you have to keep in mind is that sports betting, like any type of market, tends towards efficiency. And if you can rely on the innate market efficiency of those that are good at it, you can take advantage of the innate inefficiency of those that are not good at it.
Yeah.
And when I say those, I don't mean bettors. I don't mean tail my picks or anything like that. I don't make picks. You'll never hear me make a pick.
Yeah.
I talk about process.
Yeah.
And the people I talk about that you want to follow are the sharp sports books.
Yeah.
Because the sharp sports books have the sharp bettors bet into them. So they become sharper just because the sharp bettors are there hammering the line into shape. And that becomes a very efficient line. And you can take advantage of that by betting at a sports book that doesn't get the sharp action, that doesn't quite book sports as sharply as some of these other guys. And you can catch inefficiencies by catching the line when it's a little bit off at another book. And so this used to be called steam chasing. That was the term we all used 20 years ago on this. Now it's called top-down method. And top-down method basically means you have a source of truth in the market, and then you pick off other sports books, other lines that are different from the source of truth, and you can quantify your advantage you have in that, and you can bet Kelly just like you would with blackjack. You can bet fractional Kelly just like you would in blackjack to reduce the amount of variance in your bankroll. And it starts to line up with how card counters approach blackjack, is also how sports bettors who are quantitatively minded using a top-down methodology approach sports betting.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think that's part of it. Like with card counting, it's a very, the system is laid out, the system's been laid out for 50 years or whatever.
Oh yeah.
Of course there are things that are changing, and there's more to it than reading a book and then having the system down. But I think when we were thinking seriously when we were running the church team about moving into sports betting, but what we really knew about was bottom up, and it was like, well, which of us is going to do this, or how do we find someone that is has the model to beat the sports books or whatever. It was like, this is over our head. And
right.
what we didn't understand is like there are some approaches that are kind of figured out in a sense. So like the bonuses, that's one we already talked about. You don't have to write a computer model to know if they're going to give you a sign up bonus, it's a good deal. Now, then you say, well, how do I maximize it? How do I get the most EV out of it? But similarly, with this top-down method is saying, okay, I don't have to write a model. I don't have to even care about sports. That was one of the questions. Hey, and I'll just tell you guys on the chat room, I'll get to your questions, but be patient with me. But one of the questions was about like, do you have to like or know sports? And it's like, no, you don't. You have to know the sharp lines and then look for non-sharp lines and, bet the better side. And that's one of the tools you guys have, is to even see how much your edge is after the VIG. Right? Like I was playing around with that, or I was watching a video on it or something. The point being, I think for card counters, and this is why I never wanted to, when it came to poker, I like to limit, because it's like it was the more mathematical, like I don't have to question. I just know if I play tight and if I know the right hands to play and all that stuff, I can gain the edge. But I never wanted to get into the other stuff because I didn't know. And I didn't want to be, I had friends that were down tens of thousands of dollars at poker thinking they were still playing with an edge. So card counters, we want to know. Well, there are ways with top-down betting with bonuses to know your edge. But then there's the other option, which is to build out a model, and you have to trust the process a bit, and that can be uncomfortable if it's a certain kind of person, someone that doesn't mind diving deep and building out the systems and the model, and back testing and all the stuff it would take. I asked you guys on like a live stream or something how many hours, and you guys were both like, I don't know, like thousands.
Yeah.
And that's what it might take to do that. But I guess I want, what I'm saying is you don't need, there are different levels you can get involved. Some that might be better fits for certain personalities, some that might be better fits for others. And some people might have no interest in this at all, but it's not one way to beat sports books, correct?
Exactly. That is the key point that I would say everyone needs to realize is there's no one way to beat sports betting. And what you described when you were with Church Team and they know as a model. Yeah, I did the same thing when I was, 10, 20 years ago. That's exactly what I thought. I had to build this model and I had to, no, you don't. You can, if you want to do it that way, if you really want to do it the hard way, go ahead and do it that way. But you don't have to do it that way. And I know plenty of guys, look, one of the most successful sports bettors I know has no idea who plays on teams. No idea. Yeah. In fact, famously, the day Andrew Luck retired, which was like 2018-19, all of a sudden in the middle of the summer, he just said, I'm out. And he retired for the Indianapolis Colts. I was in the middle of talking to him over a text message, and I said, Andrew Luck just retired. And he said, who's that? And literally, he had no idea who Andrew Luck was, and he was the quarterback for the Indianapolis Colts at the time. And this guy has made tens of millions of dollars betting sports. You can't make that up, right? Like, can you imagine a stock trader who has no idea who the CEO of Apple is, or something like that? Like, it just seems they would do that, but they know numbers. They just know the numbers and how the numbers interrelate, and they just find inefficiencies and they bet it. And they let the EV equal their AV over time. Done deal.
So let's talk about how you identify an inefficiency.
Sure. So, one of the reasons that I'm on here tonight is because I have a site that I created with a couple other people, one of whom is probably I would say he's the James Grosjean of sports betting.
Are you talking about yourself?
I know that's a lofty title, but Rufus Peabody is one of the greatest sports bettors I've ever met. The guy has a brilliant mind, and he just thinks of things that nobody else has thought of. Okay. So I founded this site with Rufus. It's called unabated.com, like unabated to the quarterback. Sometimes you hear them call that penalty in football, unabated to the quarterback, 10 yards. So that's what we kind of went with, unabated. It's a word you've heard before, but it's a single word.
I heard it on Hard Knocks last night. I was getting caught up, and they said,
I must not have been listening.
It was the first or second episode, and I almost sent you a message, but I didn't.
Oh, I got to go back and play that. Anyway, so we founded this site because we feel like everywhere out there in sports betting is somebody, they're trying to sell you picks, trying to sell you something that's not true. Like the amount of noise when it comes to sports betting that legalization has created is just abysmal. It's just people talking, they don't know what they're talking about.
Oh, totally.
But because there's such a thirst for sports betting, they given a platform.
Yeah.
And so Rufus and I got together, and I had started to do some YouTube content through the pandemic, and I wanted to educate sports bettors. And Rufus has always had this yearn to educate and have more of a legacy product of something that he can say, look, I gave this to the sports betting world. And that's what we created. So we started out with tools that would help you figure out what each half run or each half point was worth in all the major sports. If the line moves from Seattle +7 to Seattle +7.5, how much is that move worth? If you're able to get +7.5 and the rest of the world is 7, what is that worth to you? And we have tools that help you quantify that.
Yeah.
Give you the exact percentage, give you your EV. And so if you're going to go ahead and make that bet at +7.5, then you know that I've got a 3.4% EV. And well, if I have a 3.4% edge in something, then I'm going to bet a quarter Kelly of my bankroll, and maybe I'm going to bet, to win 0.8% of my bankroll. That's that sort of thing.
It's like a true 8.
And what's that?
It's like a true 8 at the table.
You're right. Well, and see, that's the point, Colin. You like blackjack players would beg, borrow, and steal to get a 1.5% edge. And here we are talking about sports betting where 3, 5, 10 higher percentages are all over the place all the time. You beat the rest of the market to them because the market moves fast and the market's going to tend towards efficiency. And that's why when I said sports betting will take all the hours that you can give it, is because these things happen all over the place. If you can spot them when they're happening and you can beat the rest of the market to it, you get that edge. And so we created this site Unabated to help you quantify that edge. And so there's a couple key components that go into this process. We have an odds screen. Now, if you're a sports bettor, an odds screen is basically giving you all of the odds from all of the different sports books. And you say to yourself, oh, well, that doesn't seem that hard to do. That's really hard to do because these sports books don't necessarily want to propagate out their odds everywhere. They want to trap you in their little tunnel and have just bet with them. They don't want you betting with the other guys. So if you are a savvy consumer and you're always looking for the best price, you're basically practicing top down. You're always looking for the best possible price on something. And you need an odds screen to tell you all over the place. And so we've developed one of the fastest odds screens out there. We have real-time feeds hooked into the back end of some of these sports books so that you get the line move when it happens. And then we have these integrated tools so that when you see something different, you can say, oh, let me just click on these lines and it'll tell you what the difference is between them, how much that difference is worth. In fact, we have a column that is the best line. So in other words, of all the books on the screen, we'll tell you what the two best lines are on either side of the line. So in that theoretical matchup between Seattle and Denver, if the best line is plus 7.5 on Seattle and the best line on Denver is minus 6.5, it's going to show you where those two lines are. It's also going to tell you what the edge is there because that would actually create a middle opportunity where you could bet both sides of the game and have an expected profit. And also you're able to quantify and then do your staking as you need to. Now that sounds like a complex process, but we've got guys that are doing this. They're just grinding this out. They're just watching the screen and they're catching these things. And it's not like these things disappear with the first bet that bets into them. They may hang out there for minutes, hours. Some of these sports books are just sort of kind of wholly inefficient in how they operate, and they just leave money laying around all over the place. And we got guys that, and I don't use this as a bragging mention, but $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 a month they're making just doing this.
Yeah, they're
just grinding this out from home. And that was one of the things that always attracted me to sports betting is, I remember I said I was a bad card counter. Card counters, I didn't want to travel. I didn't want to put the legwork in. I didn't want to go to all these different remote tribal casinos. But you can do this right from your own home, especially if you're in a state that has decent sports book action. And if you're not, then you can kind of do the offshore. You can do the local bookies and things like that. You get a little bit. It's a little bit of a gray area for a lot of people, but it's still viable.
Yeah, I was listening today. That Shane Sigsby, I think he was on Gambling with an Edge, and I think that Richard Munchkin recently tweeted out, and then RX Gamble made a comment. I was like, oh, if they're both, putting this out, I should probably listen to it. And so I did, and I was shocked that like pretty much what he does is just this top down. And has been doing a business of it for several years now. So if people think, it's just good to know the opportunities that are out there. And then maybe you could tell us a little bit about how you do quantify your edge, and then we got a whole bunch of questions I want to make sure we get to if we can.
Sure. So the best way to quantify your edge is we have what we call the unabated line. Now, the unabated line is a curated blend of the sharpest sports books. So just hang with me for this explanation. There's no single one sharpest sports book in the world. There just isn't. Each sports book has a specialty. So for instance, in Las Vegas, the Circa Casino, they have a very sharp sports book there. In fact, if you've been in Circa,
Yeah.
you've seen it's the world's largest sports book. But they were very sharp in college sports. So if they set a line on a college football game, that line is followed by a lot of other sports books. And then you have some offshore sports books like Pinnacle, who's always been a very sharp book. And you have the Superbook over at the former Westgate there. That's also a fairly sharp team when it comes to college sports. And then there's a company that does basically line generation for other sports books called Deck. Ed Miller of poker book fame, and a very brilliant bettor who was also a card counter at one time. Matthew Davidow founded that company. And you take all of these numbers, and we basically polled all of the top bettors we know, and we know a lot of them. And we said, okay, for college football, you bet college football, who's the sharpest? Who's the second sharpest? Who's the third sharpest? And we basically curated this weighted average of who's the sharpest. And then we chop the VIG out of the line, so it's not minus 110 on either side. It's even money. And this becomes the true price. This becomes the unabated line. And you can compare that to some other sports book, and you can see, oh, well, this says this line is 2.4% better than the unabated line. And we know that the unabated line is like true north. That's we know is the true price. And there you have a 2.4% edge. Or you click on something and you find like, this is like minus 0.3% compared to the unabated line. It's not as good as the unabated line. It's a situation, and you can recognize that. Betting sports this way is sort of like wonging, but the casino doesn't spot you standing there and waiting and waiting and waiting for the count. And instead of waiting and watching one table, you're waiting and watching hundreds of tables at the same time, and you're making a lot of bets. Probably more than you would make if you were actually walking the 27% of the time that the shoe goes positive. So it's a viable way to just pick off the edges.
But there is still the risk of getting your accounts closed on you, and they were talking about that today. I mean, I was at Bet Bash, so I was listening to the talks about it. This was one question I had was, so this guy Shane was saying that they avoid the smaller markets, like little league baseball, or I don't know, they threw out a few that you can find big edges there, but the casinos or the sports books are gonna close your account a lot faster than if you stick with the bigger sports where it might be harder to find those edges, but you can get down for a lot longer. Do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah. Oh, exactly. I do. So I'm fond of saying, and this is a phrase I kind of stole from Richard Munchkin. There's the science of sports betting and there's the art of sports betting. And he always used to say this about blackjack, because the science is well known. Everybody can kind of figure out the science of it all. Yeah. The art of it is getting the money down and remaining in the game.
Yeah.
And I don't need to tell your audience that that's sort of like the same situation here. So we do talk about that at Unabated. We have a Discord, and we talk a lot about the art of sports betting. One of the things you can do is, I just gave you like one way to beat sports with this top-down methodology, but we got tools for bottom up. We got tools for doing your own research and building your own model and analyzing player props and analyzing season wins. And if you spread all of your action around and you're betting at all these different sports books and you're not just hammering the same sports book every single night, your action blends in. Yeah. And we talk about doing cover plays. One of the best ways you can do a cover play is do a round robin parlay. And if your audience is somewhat smart, they would say, well, parlays are bad, right? Yes, parlays are bad. But if you do a round robin parlay, it's sort of like chopping up a parlay into so many smaller parlays that you take a lot of the variance out and you end up betting just about the same type of EV as if you would have bet these straight. And yes, they might be a slightly negative EV play, but to the sports book, they look at you and go, oh, this sucker's betting a round robin. We got a fish on the hook here. And they just ignore you for a while because you look like you just walked into the casino and sat down at the roulette table and put it all on black, so, or your lucky number.
So that's another way that it's like card counting. There's gaining the edge, then there's getting money down on the edge. So cool. Do you mind if we jump into some questions?
Let's do it.
Awesome. Actually, I'm going to turn my lights up. It's it's getting dark finally here in Seattle. Um, I didn't have the lights on. So let's see here. Paradigm's asking, how do you determine whether or not a factor that you think is a novel idea is already accounted for in a line?
Yeah, no, that's a good question, Paradigm, because you have to figure that markets are tending towards efficiency, and ways that, so we'll approach this from two different ways. If you approach it from a bottom-up standpoint, where you have a model and you're using maybe like batting average and extra base hits and things like that, stats that are well known, and you're building a model from that. That's probably factored in because these are all things that everyone has available to them. And if something was sticking out here, it would have been sticking out for hundreds of thousands of millions of other people, right? So if you're building a model, you always have to figure that you better have something that sticks out and doesn't just blend in with what the line already says, or else you probably have a bad model. Now, if you're doing top down and you're doing that, you're not really relying on an angle in your head in terms of something you see in the line. You're relying on a sharper book, and that sharp book has the aggregate hive mind of all of these sharp bettors that have already bet into it, and you don't have to worry as much about that being already factored in or not factored in, because you're not even relying on that. You're relying on just the true north of the efficient market theory.
Okay, cool. Let's get to you already mentioned Miller. What's his name?
Ed Miller.
Ed Miller. But Nichols wants to know, other than the logic of sports betting, what are some of the essential reads someone who's interested in sports betting should read? I mean, the Unabated blog.
Yeah, so we're at this point now where books are kind of passé, right? I think I realized I already wrote like 50,000 words this summer alone in terms of different articles and different posts and things like that in our Discord. So really, if you want to read a book these days, you just go online and go to a site that has all of this aggregate knowledge.
Yeah.
But that said, Stanford Wong wrote the Sharp Sports Betting, in 2001, and he updated it in 2010, and it's dated. It's pretty much dated, but there are a lot of key things in Stanford Wong's book that have never changed. The things like using Poisson distribution to kind of as a way to analyze some prop bets. His teaser section still holds up. You can still bet what we call a Wong teaser. Last week when I was on Gambling with an Edge, I briefly touched upon it and said it's still good. Yeah. 20 years later, Stanford Wong's landmark, like, hey, bet this teaser because it passes through the 3, the 6, and the 7. It still works. So there's a lot of things there in Sharp Sports Betting. I'll give you one more example. There's a book called Conquering Risk by Elihu Feustel. And it's good. It's probably not to the same level of Stanford Wong's book, but Elihu takes a little bit more mindful approach to things. And the first part of that book is all about sports betting. The second part about is stock market investing. Focus on the sports betting. The sports betting stuff solid. The stock market stuff, I don't know.
Was he at BetBash?
He was, yes.
I talked with him for a bit.
Great guy.
Yeah, I think he was also a former card counter.
Yes.
Okay, this one's over my head, but Simple Jack wants to know, Captain Jack, are you involved with the newly formed Hammer Syndicate? Do you think they'll be looking to be acquired by Simon Hunter's syndicate? I don't know what that means.
So, Hammer Time, or whatever they're calling themselves. That's actually a media. It's a bunch of podcasts and media things that have formed a network. They approached Unabated, and we declined for now.
Okay.
But it got a lot of buzz on social media today.
Okay.
And then his reference to Simon Hunter's syndicate is an inside joke with a lot of people. A guy that it's a little bit of a phony that got caught being a phony.
Yeah, I mean, my brother is a huge sports fan, and he's constantly telling me these guys that don't know what they're talking about, that are oh yeah, well, I'm going to bet this. And my brother's smart enough to know, like, this is not thinking about it from an EV standpoint or analytically. It's just like, oh, I think this. And then the sports guy Bill Simmons? Then he'll start talking about blackjack. He's like, oh well,
Yeah,
you gotta change the flow of the cards sometimes, or he'll say these things. They're like, okay, don't trust his picks because he has awful blackjack advice also.
yeah, absolutely.
Small
Unfortunately.
small town guy says using bet rivers in multiple states has recently changed.
Oh, really?
New offer started September 1st. Check terms and conditions. So
So
good to
that one's
know.
gone.
Yeah, man, you got to hit this stuff quick or it's gone. XPH says beyond hedging on bonuses with zero risk for is sports betting for someone who's totally not into sports. Oh, we already answered that. Yeah, you don't have to follow sports. You have to see where the edge is. You have to find the edge. You don't have to know basketball to see that the smart line is here and then there's these other lines over here.
Exactly.
Okay. Can you speak on the art of jamming kiosks?
Okay.
Yeah, how would you characterize the kiosk environment in Atlantic City? How often are they backing people off of kiosks? Can you get through at least one session with some standard best practices?
Okay. Yeah. I don't want to give too much away because this is something that a lot of people, it's sort of like telling about somebody's honey hole in terms of their
totally.
blackjack game that they don't want people to know about, right? But it's not hard to kind of piece together logically in your mind is that, okay, you bet on the app, they know who you are. You bet at the window, they know who you are. They see your face. But if you bet at the kiosk, they don't see who you are. They actually have a little camera, pinhole camera. They do see you. And so if hop around from kiosk to kiosk and get your bets in, maybe they wouldn't notice who you are because a lot of these sports books now, in order to handle the large crowds, have dozens of kiosks available to you to bet at. And this was the way a lot of people were getting down. They were kind of going to kiosk and we call it kiosk jamming, where they would jam a bunch of money in, make their bets, get their ticket and then walk away before whoever is monitoring the kiosk calls up the back office and says, go, the guy at kiosk number 12, he's a sharp, get him off of there. You just run away before they get to you. And it sounds like fun, doesn't it, Colin? Like, doesn't that sound like,
totally.
Just getting away with it, right? Quick story. I was actually hanging out in a sports book one time with three other guys, and one of the guys just kept getting up and going. I figured he was checking scores somewhere. He was going to the bathroom. I didn't know. And literally like an hour or 2 hours later, we're done. We're walking out. And I go, everything okay, Mike? You were like jumping up and leaving all the time. He goes, oh, no, I kept betting. He goes, I got $81,000 down on this college game. He got $81,000 down in a couple of hours at all of these kiosks all over the sports book. I mean, more power to him. But anyway, so the art of it is trying to get away with it. And anymore, it's getting really, really tough because these sports books are starting to put up signs that say, if you're caught violating our rules, which are their arbitrary rules, you will not be. I don't think that's very much legal. I mean, you can't just make up a rule and say, we're not going to pay people that bet too much on a kiosk. You accepted the bet, you have to pay the bet. So I've actually lodged some complaints with the Gambling Commission here in New Jersey, the DGE, and we've gone back and forth about it. Not a lot has changed, but they're also not enforcing these signs that they've put up at a lot of these kiosks. But I would be careful if you are somebody who's trying to jam kiosks to get an edge. You got to figure out what's the tolerance point. How much can I get away with? Yeah. And did I go a little too far? And, sometimes you face repercussions when you try to cash out those tickets.
Well, a lot like card counting.
Exactly.
We got another question here. Do you think top-down works for all markets, even player props or smaller derivative markets?
Yeah, that's a great question because no, it's not as much. So the key point you have to have in top-down is you have to have a source of truth that is a solid source of truth. Yeah. And when you come to player props, there's a lot of these sharp sports books that I named, these, Circa and Bookmaker and Pinnacle, they don't care about player props. That's never been where they wanted to make their business. They'll have $200, $300, $500 limits on player props, but they don't really care about them. And you can't expect them to put the same level of bookmaking into player props that they do with other things. Now, the paradigm is the American public, having grown up on DFS and having grown up in fantasy sports, they love player props. sports bettors in America love player props. And some of these sports books are kind of catering to that, and they're taking big money. But if they see any kind of sharp action, they just limit you down to nothing on player props. It's sort of like they're, heads I win, tails you lose when it comes to player props. If you're going to not be good at it, we'll let you bet anything you want. But if you show your brain, just like card counting, then we're not going to let you bet into this. So there's really no sharp sources of player prop lines, and so you can't really use a top-down methodology. I recommend people do bottom-up when it comes to player props because they're a little bit easier to solve in a bottom-up way. And we have tools at Unabated to kind of help you simulate out and understand the difference between mean and median, and understand how much a yard is worth if you have a running back over under 68.5 yards, but you're able to find 66.5 yards. What is that worth? All that quantifying things that we do with top down, we also do with bottom up with things like player props.
Yeah, and I saw you guys are creating videos to help people understand how to get started with building a bottom up model. Next question. Someone wants to know why I'm a 49ers fan when I'm from Seattle. I'm actually from the Bay Area originally. Lived in California till I was 11. And when you grew up in the Bay Area with Joe Montana, Jerry Rice, Steve Young, guys like that, you're a 49ers fan. And I can't just, I got some food on my teeth. You can't just quit on your team that you grew up with just because you moved. And so it's not very fun being a 49ers fan in Seattle, but what are you going to do? Next question. For someone that is generally a top-down bettor, what would be an example of a use case for Unabated to find a plus EV bet beyond just using the odds screen? Or is the odds screen really where you go to find those?
But top down just means you've identified a source of truth. So if you have anything where you can identify this is what the line should be, that could be. Here's an example of top down. There are a couple sites that are really strong at daily fantasy sports player projections. They just have it dialed in. And they put out their projections as to what players are going to get how many yards and whatnot like that. And people have found that to get the edge at player props because I can use this person's projections as my source of truth. So just like I said, there's no sports book that has that expertise level or cares enough to have the expertise at player props. That doesn't mean there's not some guy out there that just lives and breathes fantasy football that doesn't have really great projections, and you use him as your source of truth, and then you go top down from that. And of course, it's the same, but it's a little bit different because you're not kind of watching the market move. You're just kind of saying, look, I got the answer key, and how much different is his 96.5 versus this sportsbook's 94.5, and you can use our tools by entering in his projection and seeing it simulated out and seeing the pricing sheet that gets the distribution that gets outputted and use that as a top down. So there's an example. I don't know if that's the best example, but the reason we start at that odds screen is because that's where you see the market makers in action. And anytime you're doing top down, you want to know who the market makers are and what they're doing.
Cool. Paradigm wants to know, how much square action should you mix into your bets to try to avoid getting limited, if any? Should you vary your bet sizes on these bets to look similar to your usual betting patterns?
So the phrase we use is called priming an account. Mm-hmm. So you get a sportsbook account, you sign up, and you make not square bets, but just not sharp bets for the first 10 bets. And you can do anything with that. You could be betting, you could be using an odds screen and finding arbitrage situations or finding just things that look like a normal bettor. The average normal bettor deposits $200 and maybe $50 a game, and they bet the NFL on game day. That's great action for a sports book because the NFL is very efficient, and betting on game day means you're betting into an efficient line. And if you're betting like 50 out of your $200 balance, that means like you just don't understand kind of being very risk averse in the amount you're going to bet. You look like the kind of guy that a sports book wants to have. And so we kind of recommend the first 10 bets you make shouldn't be things where you're kind of picking off sharp edges, because their chances are they're going to profile you based on your first 10 wagers or so. There was a guy at Bet Bash who was the VP of trading for BetMGM, and he said that. He goes, we profile bettors based on their first 10 bets. And now, notice I said when you get a fresh account, because obviously, things happen and you might get limited. Yeah. But maybe you sign up with your wife's account, or maybe you sign up with your brother's account or your mother's account. The great story, Colin, is you'll see studies done in which they'll say female sports bettors are sharper than male sports bettors. Studies show that the results of betting show that women win more than men. Well, they win more than men because these are men that have burned out of their own account because they're winning, and they're playing on their wife's account or their mother's account or something like that. We've all done it. So yeah, that's why the women always show up as the sharper sports bettors. I only know of a handful of women that actually are wanting to be sports bettors, let alone sharp ones.
Yeah, that's probably also like card counting. 95% male, in my experience. All right, Madigan Jack says, to clarify regarding the risk-free sign-up promotion, if you sign up for FanDuel, bet $100 on underdog and lose, say I get back $100 in site credit. So then I bet that again. If I lose again, the money's gone, correct?
Yes, that's true. It's going to get 2 bites at an apple. Yeah. There's an article, free article we have up at unabated.com in which I talk about how to play risk-free bets. You can just go to our articles, and it's down, I think, Betting Basics, risk-free bets. Also on my YouTube channel, I have a video from way back in 2020, mid-pandemic. I got hair everywhere. The best way to use your risk-free bets. That's an article that just explain everything to you in 5 minutes. So you can try either one of those to kind of get a little bit more in detail.
During the pandemic, I didn't cut my hair or shave for 3 months, and people on YouTube were like, Colin's getting old during COVID.
Yeah, I know.
Oh, that was fun. Hoffmeister said, what's the Discord? The Discord is part of an unabated membership or subscription. So
yeah, it's actually it's free. If you go to our website, option. Yeah, it's free. Mm-hmm. We have a premium section where there's like 4 channels we have hidden. Yeah. That if you get a premium membership, you can verify in the Discord. We get all those instructions, and in the premium section, that's where we tell all the secrets.
You guys are way more patient than me. We had a free forum for a while, and I just couldn't handle the blackjack conversations on the free forum. It was it was like, you know what? You're going to have to pay because then there's a barrier to entry. But you guys are a lot more gracious than I was.
Well, I actually pushed back on this for a few months and said, no, every sports betting forum I've ever been into devolves into toxicity and pick-based content and calling each other names. Yeah. And we're like, let's try to be different. Let's try from the very jump to be different. And so we've tried. And we, knock on wood, it's worked so far. It's a great like-minded community right now.
Cool. Small town guy, how quick are books to limit your betting? Well, we kind of talked on that a little bit. What do bettors do to keep betting? Yeah, we kind of answered that, but it probably just depends on.
It depends.
Yeah, the amount you're betting and how quickly they identify you, which is also like card counting.
Yes, it's very much like card counting. Yes,
it took forever to figure out, and still, I talk to guys that are like, yeah, I lasted for a year and $100K at my local casino, and then other people are like, how did that happen to you? Because I got picked off in a week at my local,
right,
or in a night. All right, here we go. Thanks for the great answers. So, what proposition would you vote on in California Prop 27 or Prop 26? Hoffmeister's asking.
Yeah. So no, this is a good question. Look, California, 4th largest economy in the world. They have 2 ballot referendums up this November, Prop 26 and Prop 27, both of which legalize sports betting, both in very different ways. Prop 26 is supported by the tribals, and they want sports betting only to be done at tribal casinos, no mobile. And really, they don't even want sports betting. This would legalize roulette and craps. It would, but more importantly for them, it would be punitive damages against the card rooms. And the card rooms in California are like their mortal enemy. Prop 27 is floated by the 5 largest sportsbook brands in the U.S. And they're saying we'll have sports betting in California mobile, but in order to hit the barrier of entry, you need to pay $100 million for a license fee, and you need to operate in 10 other states, which coincidentally is the barrier that's reached by just those 5 sports books. So these are 2 very self-serving bills. None of them are benefiting the people of California. Look, if I was a diehard sports bettor, I would probably be voting yes to 27 and no to 26, although if 26 passes, it doesn't mean you'll never have mobile sports betting, because the tribals have already kind of hinted that they'll come back in 2 years and they'll want to legalize mobile sports betting. The thing that they're claiming is the biggest pariah that could possibly invade California is the thing that they're going to come back in 2 years and try to pass. Typical casino logic, right? So, yeah, I mean, honestly, the best path is no on 26 and 27. But if I really needed my sports betting in California, I would vote 27 yes. 26 is just a load of crap that's being put on the people of California. So, and who lives near a tribal casino in California? Nobody.
Yeah. Cool. A couple more. When is middling preferable to just taking a good number on one side?
So that's a great question. We actually have a calculator we're working on, and I want to title it, "Is This a Middle?" It's for like the old David Letterman thing, "Is this anything?"
Oh, yeah.
You just enter 2 lines, and it will tell you, is this a middle or not? And how much of a profit is it expected value? Because basically, when you have a middle, it's typically you have one good line, one sharp line, and one bad line, one square line. You'd probably do better in the long run going after the EV of just betting the square side and leaving the sharp side alone. It's also sort of like a mirage, because you think you're betting both of these and you're getting the best of it. But in essence, like, you're losing money to the sharp book who has the sharper line and they don't care. And you're winning money at the square book who's probably more likely to limit you. So you're taking a lot of the profits from the square book and giving them to the sharp book. And you're still going to get limited in the end. So I'm always a fan of you play whatever is the best for you individually based on your bankroll. We have some tools actually that Rufus developed that is a bankroll optimal hedge calculator.
Yeah.
So you enter your bankroll and you enter what the hedge bet is, and we'll tell you if it's a good idea to hedge it based on Kelly optimal growth of your bankroll. It's like a calculus equation, but that's the way Rufus thinks. He comes up with these tools that nobody else is trying to put out there.
It was before Unabated. Tommy Highland was telling me about Rufus. Like, he's like, "Oh, do you listen to this guy? Bet the Process." Is that right?
Yes.
Yeah, he's like, "This guy is so smart. You got to listen to this guy." So before you guys created Unabated, I think Tommy Highland was singing the praises of Rufus. So it's a good team you guys have there. Let's see. Simple Jack says, "I think halftime live wagering has a potential for much higher edges given current technology. What would be your top 1 to 2 tips for in-game betting?"
Wow. So Simple Jack might be a plant. That might be me asking these questions, because he's giving me a great question here, because one of the things that I have not mentioned is these in-game tools. So in-game betting is where all the sports books want to be. Because if you're betting pre-game, you're making one bet, and then 3 hours later the game's decided, and they don't get any action in the meantime. So they're pushing in-game betting, where it's like high-frequency trading. You're betting in the middle of the game on events, and the lines move quickly. And they don't have an ability on in-game bets to have the countermeasures that they possibly could on pre-game bets. There's less of a way to kind of see if you have a closing line value or anything like that. And we're taking advantage of that. So we have an in-game live odds screen, real time, where we have some really sharp sports books. Deck Prism, like I mentioned, Matt Davidow, Ed Miller. We have their line. We're the only ones that have their line. Direct feed from Deck Prism. And you can see what they make the line. And you can see FanDuel and DraftKings. And you can see when Deck Prism says this, and it's an advantage at FanDuel, DraftKings, and you can go strike at DraftKings and FanDuel. And since it's in game, they're not or as much in terms of sharp bettors. There's guys that are crushing that. And you can use other books that maybe not on our screen by having like your sportsbook account open next to your unabated screen. And then we have, and this is where it gets really mind-blowing, we have these tools that Rufus created because he's able to price out what a half point should be worth in game. And we did this first for college basketball, then we did NBA basketball, then we did baseball, and this summer we started doing NFL and college football. And when we got to football, and football's traditionally is the most complex U.S. sport in terms of variability. You know, when you think about baseball, there's only certain things that could happen in a baseball diamond in the course of a game. Football, you got a huge grid of 100 yards. There could be 3rd down and 19 from the 26. There could be 1st and 10 from the 11, you know, all these different variables. And Rufus said, look, the only way to do this is to simulate out every single possible thing that could happen in a football game. And so he built these complex algorithms to kind of figure out what that was. And he came back to us. He goes, I figured it out. I figured out every permutation of a football game. And here's the number of simulations that would be run. And we got our data science team, and they said, if we get 128 supercomputers from Amazon, this will take only 1,000 days to finish. And we're like, we don't have 1,000 days till football season. And so then the data scientists went back and they started reworking this and saying, well, if this happens in a course of a simulation, then that answers the question in a subsequent simulation. And we used to, you know, it's getting into all kind of crazy math that I don't understand. Anyway, they worked the simulations down from 1,000 days to like 9 days. And so they're just crossing the finish line with all of them. It's going to be a simulation-based in-game betting tool that'll be able to tell you the value of a half point on the fly. And I realize there's a lot of this audience that might just be the eyes glazing over. But when I tell you this is groundbreaking stuff, we're super excited about it. Rufus is super excited about it. We don't know how powerful this will be because we haven't been able to actually test it. You know, we're going to be able to test it maybe tomorrow night with some situations. It could be an amazing tool for the world to use from a guy that just builds amazing things.
Awesome. So, you know, when I sent out an email to our list, I said that this would be valuable. One, if you are, you know, if you're into card counting, you're into positive EV. And if you want to say, hey, is this another opportunity for me to generate positive EV, you know, either to supplement card counting or instead of card counting or, you know, both or whatever. The other is if people are already betting on sports, like a lot of people will get into card counting because they get sick of losing at blackjack. And they're like, this is dumb. So if you know, you're like, hey, I'm betting on sports, why not bet smart on sports? So, you know, that's why I wanted to do this. And that's what Unabated is helping people do. It's the tools to help people do that. And then also if you're like, oh, I've heard about sports betting, what's it all about? Hopefully this is informative for people. You know, I never want to pressure. I want people to do what's best for them, what's going to help them, you know, be best aligned in their lives, what they say their goals are. So if card counting helps you further your goals, awesome. If sports betting helps you further your goals, awesome. If like the guy that sent me the email, not counting cards helped him further his goals, that's awesome. But if you're going to be doing this, or if this sounds interesting, then, you know, just like, I mean, I tell people, hey, if you want to, you know, have the best training and the best tools as a card counter, like go to Blackjack Apprenticeship. You know, if you want the tools and information and you know, a Discord with people that are doing this for real and access to tools that can help you identify an edge and calculate how large the edge is and all that stuff. That's what you guys are doing at Unabated. Do you guys have, isn't there like a promotional deal coming up or going on?
Yes. So, and I gave this out when I was on Gambling with an A last week. It just has a few more days to run. We actually extended it to September 11th.
Okay.
If you use the promo code EDGE, Gambling with an Edge, if you use the promo code EDGE, you get 10% off of the annual plan. Now, you're probably thinking 10%. Come on, Jack. Well, you know, our annual plan is $99 a month and paid up front. So you're getting $120 off of basically, you know, you're getting like over a month for free. Yeah, you know, our tools are not are not cheap. They're not free.
Yeah.
You know, I know a lot of people are, you know, a lot of APs just don't want to pay for anything. I get it. I was you guys. I was there. But you can recoup the EV on our site very easily. And if you can't recoup the EV, then maybe sports betting is not for you. Yeah. But we have a 7-day free trial. So you can try it out for 7 days and take it for a little bit of a test drive, see what the tools are all about. We have an onboarding set up so that each day of your 7-day trial, I send you an email about something else about our site that you can use. Like I talked about 2 or 3 of our tools tonight. I didn't even touch the surface. Like we got other cool stuff that we do, tools that can help you win, and we kind of spell them out over those 7 days. So give us a try for a 7-day trial. See what you can figure out in terms of your own personal dedication to sports betting. Yeah. Maybe you're really aspirational about being a better sports bettor. Maybe you're the kind of guy that was like me when I was a card. What else is there? What else is out there? Mm-hmm. You know, and maybe someday you'll come back to me and you'll go, hey, Jack, here's what's next. You know, and I'll be like, oh, man, cool. We got to get in on that. Because I'm still looking for what's next. I'm still learning. Every day I learn new stuff about anything to do with advantage play.
Yep. Yeah, I know enough APs that are involved in some way with sports betting that it seems silly to not share this with our audience. And so there's the 10% off going through September 11th. I dropped in the BJA member chat my affiliate link if you want me to get a kickback, take a little money out of Captain Jack's pocket.
Gladly.
And I'll drop that for people that are just watching it that aren't BJA members, aren't in the chat. I'll drop that link. I'll send out an email with that. But anything else you want to share with us? Thanks a lot for doing this.
No, thank you. And also, look, if our site pay is not for you, free stuff. Yeah. The articles are free. Yeah. The odds screen, a kind of a pared down version, is free. Mm-hmm. We got a free compare lines tool, free. Yeah. You know, so there's a lot of stuff. Look, I get it. If you don't want to spend the money, I get it. I understand. But that doesn't mean you can't find a lot of value at Unabated, no matter.
Yeah, I would say absolutely. Like if you're thinking, oh, this is interesting, then subscribe to Captain Jack's YouTube channel and you know, I get the emails from Unabated and I read those and I'm like growing my knowledge base. That you can do that for free. But if you're like actually going to be placing bets, you know, don't try to figure out your own system and find your own lines when like these tools, like Captain Jack said, you're going to get your money back a lot faster.
Yeah.
If you actually have the tools to make smarter bets. Awesome. I got someone texting me double or nothing on the next 49ers Packers game. Because he bet me that on the playoffs last year, and I thought the 49ers were going to get whooped, and then we won it, so he had to pay me out. But anyway, awesome. Thanks again for doing this. I will see you at some point, some undisclosed date at the Blackjack Ball. And
definitely.
For those that
Rufus will be there as well.
Oh, really? Oh, right on. Cool. Well, I'll look forward to that. Thanks, guys, for hanging out with us, and I will wrap this up and then send an email out with the link and the link to this video for those who didn't get to see the whole thing live. Thanks again.
Good night.